Hello, this is Angelia, and you are watching or listening to the podcast, Why You Do What You Do. The podcast that talks about human development and psychology to maybe help you figure out a little bit more about why you do what you do. And last time we were talking about gender crossover when, in midlife, men become a little more like women and women become a little more like men. But, it's not a big gender crossover like some people think as that. And so we're going to kind of take up there again. Men and women in one cohort, that's your group, became less family oriented and more career oriented between their 20s and 30s. And again, that depends on where you're at in life. And then more family oriented between their 30s and 40s. However, this could not have been a developmental change, because a younger cohort who were in their 20s during the second time period followed the same career to family shift during that time as the older cohorts did. So again, it depends on where you're living at, what culture you're from, and how things are being done at that point in time. But at an earlier age. Thus, the shift in values was probably due to a socio-cultural or historical influence affecting both cohorts at the same time. So again, different things affect people differently. There's no one size fits all in life. One personality-oriented study that did show opposite changes in men and women was the Mills longitudinal study. Between the beginning and the end of active parenting, that's when you're raising your kids, the Mills women increased more than their male partners in competence, confidence, and independence, while the men increased more in affiliative traits, meaning, affiliating, getting along, relationships. The women changed more dramatically than the men, perhaps because women's lives in the United States changed more than men's between the 1970s and the 1990s, when these couples' children were growing up. And I know that's true. My mom was divorced in the 70s, raising us, but there was only a few other kids on the block that were like that. A lot of, couples were still together in the 70s, but it was becoming a more normal thing for your parents to be divorced by that time even. However, these changes did not amount to a gender crossover. Indeed, in line with Jung's view, the highest quality of life for women in their 50s was associated with a balance between autonomy and involvement in an intimate relationship. So, women in their 50s want to have autonomy and have their own life, but they also want to be in an intimate relationship. And, that I think all of us really want that. So, two things seem clear. Number one, development of gender identity during adulthood is far more complex than a simple gender crossover. And number two, influences of cohort, meaning your group, and culture, and of the individual life course need to be factored in. Because like I said, not everything is the same way for everybody in all parts of the world. Everyone's different. Psychological well-being and positive mental health. Mental health is not just the absence of mental illness. Positive mental health involves a sense of psychological well-being, which goes hand in hand with a healthy sense of self. This subjective sense of well-being or happiness is a personal evaluation of his or her own life. So you have to be happy with your life to be mentally healthy. If you're not, you need to make some changes. If you don't know how to do that, you don't know what to do, you don't know what's wrong, you just know something is, go talk to somebody. There's mental health professionals who can help you figure this out. There's no stigma in it. In numerous surveys worldwide using various techniques for assessing subjective well-being, Most people of all ages, both sexes, and all races report being happy and satisfied with their lives. No particular time of life is the most satisfying. So again, people all over the world, can be happy with their lives. So that means you can too. Even after distressing events, people soon adapt and subjective well-being returns to its present level. Because stuff's going to happen in life. You know that. Jesus even said stuff's going to happen. So stuff is going to happen. But in general, most of us react, deal with, and then move past whatever the event was. The problem is where you can't accept or deal with the event, and so you never move past it. You're stuck. And I know you all have heard the phrase from pop psychology and things like being stuck. Well, that comes when you are not mentally healthy, you're not well adjusted, you cannot get past the event. The event keeps you in that mindset, the fight or flight, the trauma victim mindset. And so if you feel like that's where you are, you should definitely go talk to somebody to be able to move past that so that you can have a happy, well-adjusted life. Except among the very poor, wealth seems to make little difference in happiness. But social supports, friends and spouses, and religiosity do. So for the very poor, wealth does make a difference. Like I say, we've been living in this house since 1987. It was supposed to be our starter home. But one thing and another happened, and now we're still here. So, yeah. I feel like if I had a little more money, maybe we could have a bigger house. But, hopefully someday we'll be able to do that, cash in the retirements and do it. So do certain personality traits, such as extroversion and the quality of a person's work and leisure experiences. Because if you're more outgoing, then you're going to be happier anyway. That's just, how it is. Excuse me. And if you're happy with, your life in general, of course you're going to be more happy. Yet, in contrast with these findings of emotional stability throughout life, when adults of various ages reported their emotional state many times a day for a week, negative feelings diminished through midlife. Emotions also became more complex or bittersweet, perhaps. The authors of this research suggest because middle-agers have learned to accept what comes. And you do. When you're young and stuff, my son, poor boy, he's going through buying another house right now. Now, he lived in Indiana in first, and it was a lot easier there. Here where we live, it's a harder process. So he's getting knocked out of the water with all this paperwork, all these I's he's got to dot, all these T's he's got to cross. They keep holding up, him getting the house. He's just, you could tell. I mean, he was in tears one day when he had to come print out a piece of paper and take it, to the lawyer to get it done. And, me and my husband's age, we'd just be like, oh, and then we do whatever needed to be done and move on. It wouldn't upset us as much because we've been through more in life. We've had our upsets in the, 20s, 30s and all that, and raising kids. And like I said, me dealing with school systems was the most frustrating thing in my life because 2 of my kids were in ECE, and there are teachers who do not respect their rights, and sometimes you got to go to bat, and maybe even more, and get kids moved around or taken out, or at least try to force the law on them, so that was frustrating. But at our age, or my age, you might be a lot younger, a lot older, I don't know. But at my age, we've kind of learned to take this stuff in stride. It's like the world sucks, and it's gonna suck, and sucky stuff is gonna happen to you. You just have to learn to take a deep breath, deal with the suckage, get it over with, and move on. Emotions also became more complex or bittersweet. Yeah, we went that far. Carol Ryff and her colleagues, drawing on a range of theorists from Erikson to Maslow, have developed a multifaceted model that includes 6 dimensions of well-being and a self-report scale to measure them. So all the time people are working on stuff, looking at other people's work. That's why I say it's important to put your work out there, because people can build on your work and look at your work and, figure out, oh, well, you know what? She had a point, but guess what? I'm looking at this, and this might be this. So, science, the scientific method is a great thing, I think, that was discovered. These 6 dimensions are self-acceptance, positive relations with others, autonomy, environmental mastery, purpose in life, and personal growth. So these are the things you need to be happy in your life. And so let's have a deeper look at the dimensions of well-being used in this scale. All right, let's go to self-acceptance. A high scorer possesses a positive attitude toward the self, acknowledges and accepts multiple aspects of self, including good and bad qualities, feels positive about past life. A low scorer feels dissatisfied with the self, is disappointed with what has occurred in past life, is troubled about certain personal qualities, wishes to be different from what he or she is. Positive relations with others. A high scorer has warm, satisfying, trusting relationships with others, is concerned about the welfare of others, is capable of strong empathy, affection, and intimacy, understands give and take of human relationships. A low scorer has few close, trusting relationships with others, finds it difficult to be warm, open, and concerned about others, is isolated and frustrated in interpersonal relationships, is not willing to make compromises to sustain important ties with others. Autonomy. A high scorer is self-determining and independent, is able to resist social pressures to think and act in certain ways, regardless behavior from within evaluates self by personal standards. A low scorer is concerned about the expectations and evaluations of others, relies on judgments of others to make important decisions, conforms to social pressures to think and act in certain ways. Environmental mastery. A high scorer has a sense of mastery and competence in managing the environment, controls complex array of external activities, makes effective use of surrounding support and opportunities, is able to choose or create contexts suitable to personal needs and values. A low scorer has difficulty managing everyday affairs, feels unable to change or improve surrounding context, is unaware of surrounding opportunities, lacks sense of control over external world. Purpose in life. A high scorer has goals in life and a sense of directedness, feels there is meaning to present and past life, holds beliefs that give life purpose, has aims and objectives for living. A low scorer lacks a sense of meaning in life, has few goals or aims, lacks sense of direction, does not see purpose in past life, has no outlooks or beliefs that give life meaning. And that's sad. Personal growth. A high scorer has a feeling of continued development, sees self as growing and expanding, is open to new experiences, has sense of realizing his or her potential, sees improvement in self and behavior over time, is changing in ways that reflects more self-knowledge and effectiveness. A low scorer has a sense of personal stagnation, lacks sense of improvement or expansion over time, feels bored with and uninterested in life, feels unable to develop new attitudes or behaviors. So there's your comparison between someone who's a high scorer on this and a low scorer. And again, if you feel like you're a low scorer on this, you can go talk to somebody. There are mental health professionals out there to help you, become better, adjusted and feel, better about your life. According to Ryff, psychologically healthy people have positive attitudes towards themselves and others. And we all know those negative folks. We've met negative folks, and just everything is bad, 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 negative, 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 and you're just like, oh gosh. They make their own decisions and regulate their own behavior, and they choose or shape environments compatible with their needs. They have goals that make their lives meaningful, and they strive to explore and develop themselves as fully as possible. And that's why I tell my students and my clients, never stop learning, never stop having experiences, because you never stop growing. And who wants to sit around the last 20-30 years of their life doing nothing? That, to me, that's boring. A series of cross-sectional studies based on Ryff's scale shows midlife to be a period of generally positive mental health. They were more autonomous than younger adults, but somewhat less purposeful and less focused on personal growth, because they've already arrived. They're winding down. Future-oriented dimensions that declined even more sharply in late adulthood. Environmental mastery, on the other hand, increased between middle and late adulthood. Self-acceptance was relatively stable for all age groups. Women's well-being was quite similar, but women had more positive social relationships than men. Well-being was greater for men and women with more education and better jobs. So again, guys, we are better at relationships than you. No offense, sorry, because that's how we're wired. We're wired that way. Excuse me. And of course, people who are more educated and have better jobs are going to feel more well-adjusted. Generativity is a factor in psychosocial adjustment. Generativity, according to Erickson, is a sign of both psychological maturity and psychological health. Generativity emerges as the defining feature of psychosocial adjustment at midlife because the roles and challenges of this period, the demands of work and family, call for generative responses. Remember, generativity is something that's going to outlive you. Research has generally supported and expanded on Erickson's view. In their 50s, the best adjusted men in Valiant's sample of Harvard alumni were the most generative, as measured by the responsibility for other people at work, their gifts to charity, and the accomplishment of their children, and also were most likely to use mature ways of coping. And that's something we need here today, isn't it? Not a whole lot of people using mature ways of coping, is there? A whole lot of rage out there in the world, such as altruism and humor. You're gonna see that here if you're watching. I like humor. I'm gonna put a humorous spin on things if I can, because life's too short. There are some people I know just no sense of humor, and it's like, okay, have fun with that, or don't. Similarly, in a longitudinal study of 306 inner city men, Those who at age 47 used mature coping techniques had the best health and psychosocial functioning. So even if you're in the hood, if you have a good attitude, you're going to be doing better. In other research on generativity and mental health, a 32-year longitudinal study followed 87 young men who were students at George Williams College, a training institution for social service work. In their 50s, according to Erickson's and Valiant's criteria, more than half of the group had achieved generativity, defined as the highest stage of positive mental health. So that is the highest defined stage of positive mental health is generativity, wanting to put something out there that's going to outlast you. They had been successful in their work, taken responsibility for others, and achieved intimacy, typically through a long-time happy marriages. Generativity, then, may derive from involvement in multiple roles, as heads of families and leaders in organizations and communities. Such involvement has been linked to well-being and satisfaction both in midlife and in later life, perhaps through the sense of having contributed meaningfully to society. And it does. It helps you have a little, I did something good, you know. However, because these findings are correlational, we cannot be sure that generativity causes well-being. It may be that people who are happy with their lives are more likely to be generative. And yeah, it could be both, either way. Excuse me. Generativity is not necessarily across the board. A person may be generative as a parent, but less so as a worker or spouse, or vice versa. And generativity in each of these roles may affect well-being differently, because everybody's unique. We're each a little snowflake, and everybody's different. And that's where I'm gonna leave you for today. I hope that helped you figure out maybe a little bit more about why you do what you do. Please like and share this educational program so we can spread it around the world. If you want to help me out, subscribe to my YouTube channel. If you want to help me out even more, go to my Patreon page and be a patron. That's all for now. Thanks for watching. Until next time.